left my girlfriend after she went out with one of her guy friends and ended up my girlfriend explicitly because I was spending my weekend with family who had flown in from out of state country. Decided to go out. She spent however much of the day at the mall with some guy she said she just wanted to be friends with. He took her back to his place where there was apparently a party. She turned off her location. I noticed when I went to send her a goodnight message and asked her if everything was okay and if she was safe. She affectionately said she was. I asked her if her home Wi-Fi was down again. She told me she had turned it off so her parents wouldn't know where she was. I asked her where she was, and she never answered me. From the bits, she's told me the music was loud. He told her he wanted to show her his room because of how hilariously tiny it was. She went up with him, and he started going after her sexually. She said it was late, and her parents were worried about her, and she wanted to go home. But for what I understand, he pressured her into saying yes. That's cohesion and unconsensual. I got a message that morning telling me she had cheated, but her friends told her it was just unconsensual. I messaged her, drew her hugging geese, told her I wanted to make sure she was okay, and call. I offered to drive over. She told me she was with her good friend, different guy, obviously, and spending the day with him. I kept messaging worried about her to no response until I stopped to not pressure her. I barely got through work that day and got myself drunk first time properly sloshed that night to stop worrying. When I tried to be with family, I only had a day with between months or years. She called me when I was drunk and asked me to come over, offered to Uber me over, told me she needed me. I told her I was drunk and couldn't be there. I had also promised my family members not to talk to her if they let me. But the hard whiskey, she called me, and I was apparently asking too many questions and told me to just spend the next day with family. The next day while I was with family, she begged me to come over. By that point, I was already talking to family, including my sister who was abused, including traumatized by her ex, trying to understand. They all told me she breached my trust. In all fairness, they're biased because they feel she's abusive. In a previous post, all responses told me I was being abused if they believe the story at all. I broke up with her then, but she told me she needed me to sit next to her that night or she wouldn't be able to finish her take-home midterm. She aced it while I worked right next to her. We talked and cuddled, and I thought things would improve, and some aspects definitely did. My sister told me breaking up with her, then comforting her would just lead me back into the cycle and hurt her too. And I thought through all the stories I had hidden from them and my friends of how she did me wrong, and I yelled at them that they were wrong. And I just slid down onto the ground and wrote this did not deserve to have that happen to you. What he did was awful, and it is never your fault. But you went up to his room alone with him after you two spent however much of the day together. You made fun of me for how oblivious I was at the start, but even I would have caught that. You didn't tell him about me because you didn't want to ruin his opinion by being too complicated. You could say my boyfriend is worried about me without explaining our entire relationship. You could make it clear you were taken, but you didn't when you have actively complained to me about how men often only befriend women for smashing. And again, none of that excuses it, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. But that doesn't change that you cheated on me. Not physically, but emotionally. My family doesn't know so many of the other cheating adjacent things either, and so many friends are telling me the exact same thing. When you called me, I melted at your voice and forgot it all. But our relationship died when you walked into that room. It should have died when you refused full exclusivity, and it should have died when you kissed that guy on our break. If I go over there now, I will be betraying my sister and other relatives when I promised so many times I wouldn't leave her again. And besides, there's nothing I as your ex can possibly do to genuinely support you right now, especially with how shattered my trust is. I'm sorry I made a promise to you I couldn't keep. You were right. Your trauma is valid, and if you need to, please talk to a professional at the hotline. Thank you for the lessons, the fun, your amazing cooking, and the geese and poodle X relationship code. Word meaning 100% sincerely wish you the very best goodbye. I don't think we should stay in contact, even though it burns me inside to say this. I'll send you your stuff, including replacement Tupperware, and I'll figure out with someone to grab my stuff too. Jesus Christ, that was too much. I dumped her in my mind when you said she was hanging out with some other guy and turned her location off. I thought that was a lot when it happened, but it went insane afterwards, so I ended up spending the day with family. And that night, I went to my cousin's grandmother's 79th birthday. She and her husband were basically surrogate grandparents to me. That section of the family was always close, so they were almost grandparents to me. Her husband threw this massive party seemingly out of nowhere. That was the night I wrote the original post. 2 days later, his heart stopped. I was already a mess between trying to process what happened with my ex, wanting answers and closure, and also dealing with a flat tire. Then he was in the hospital with guaranteed brain damage, and then he was dead. I basically collapsed the first week after the post, skipping all my university classes and only going to work. I attended his vigil every night after he was taken off life support. At the end of the week, he was brain dead, but my family wanted to keep him alive until relatives from out of town could get back. During this time, my ex got around my block, messaging me on Steam, which I forgot to block her on. She said she just wanted to tell me the full story and recounted her story of it in extreme detail. She explicitly avoided telling me any information about the affair, lest I discover who it was. However, in telling me that, I was able to piece together who it was. The guy she had been in the talking phase with when we were talking to, who told her he had no interest in being friends when she chose me. Months before this incident, she had called a break, went on a date, and kissed him. I should have left her then, but through guilt and promises and what I later learned was a trauma bond built through abuse, I took her back. She swore to block him and yada yada, but I wanted answers and I was feeling so completely dead trying to process everything. I let her convince me to talk in person under the guise of closure. She cried and begged and promised and pleaded. I sat there like a rock for hours, tried walking out several times, but she withheld information while dripping it to me just quickly enough to make it feel like progress. Over the next week, I uncovered the story. She had been seeing him in secret for the month before. She claimed it was all platonic. She put incredibly effort into seeing him. She talked bad about me too. But what really gets me is that she took the train in my city where he lived too, greeted him at the station, never wanted me to pick her up from her city anymore 80 miles away, then shamed me for never picking her up and painting herself as sacrificing for me by taking the train when she was meeting her affair at the station. I worked when the train pulled in. It was her spring break, so she was back in town for a week. She love-bombed me for that whole time, presented herself as a safe harbor in the emotional storm she caused. I was 3 weeks behind on my classwork by then, and I was only able to be productive around her. So I stayed there to stay afloat, falling into her hoover. Then I saw her promises be broken. I saw the mask begin to slip, and I started collecting my stuff so she could not keep it hostage. I began mentally preparing to leave. Then the emotional abuse started again, the devaluation, the gaslighting. But I tried a few times to present myself only to be emotionally attacked for a week. Then she realized I was leaving, and it flipped into gaslighting claims of loyalty and love. I remember sending this when she claimed I was presuming to know her mind by saying she didn't love me nor was loyal to me. I'm not a mind reader, but if your brand of loyalty involves betrayal and cheating repeatedly, I don't want that loyalty. I ended up aggregating every letter I never sent her into a 43-page document. I read through it all, and I did what she never could. I listened to my younger self. I felt his pain. I became the person he had needed for 7 months, someone who could truly listen. I supported him. I proved to myself that I could love myself and that I was enough. That was what gave me closure. Myself, not her. Closure never comes from another person, only from you. Then I cut contact more thoroughly that time. NC will be a month in 3 days. She tried contacting me by using my phone number at CVS to send me a receipt, adding me on chess.com, and reacting to my Duolingo streak. But I just kept going. It was hard at first, but I got myself into therapy where I started at medium depression, but have been cleared completely. Started attending Codependence Anonymous meetings, read, reconnected with friends and family better than I ever had before in my life. I also realized that I was likely dealing with someone with comorbid BPD and NPD, especially since she would explicitly revoke her empathy and love at times, among many other things you can read by going through my post and comment history. But she's not important anymore. What matters is that I took all that energy and love I'd given her and put it into myself. And I'm now doing better than I ever have been. I'm on top of myself, and I'm busy, but I'm loving it. I went from 78 on my math exam at the beginning of NC to a 106.5 a few days ago. I barely think of my ex anymore, and while I'm not looking for romance, someone approached me the other day, and I had an amazing time with her then, so I'm open to see where things go. Apart from that, my sister's wedding is in 2 weeks. I've been incredibly busy illustrating for that, Drew, for 8 hours today. My finals are at the same time, and I'm also pursuing a Microsoft contract. So life is amazing, but exhausting. I'm driving out to the desert with my friend tomorrow, though, and he's going to introduce me to a bunch of motor and water sports. So I'm honestly really excited. Plus, I'm getting a ton of friends together on Sunday to meet up after a while. Life is really good. I just wanted to thank everyone who commented and me on the original post. So many of you helped me. Several people want an update then, so here it is. Life is good when you love yourself instead of an abuser, not the fudging Duolingo streak.